singing at a funeral tomorrow for a kid a year older than me. And I've been talking to his dad. It makes me so sad when I think too much about it. I can't breathe. And I have this dream where I'm screaming underwater while my friends are waving from the shore. And I don't need you to tell me what that means. I don't believe in that stuff anymore. Jesus Christ, I'm so blue all the time, and that's just how I feel. Always have, and I always will. I always have and always will. I have a friend I call when I've bored myself to tears, and we talk until we think we might just kill ourselves, but then we laugh until it disappears. And last night I blacked out in my car, and I woke up in my childhood bed, wishing I was someone else, feeling sorry for myself when I remembered someone's kid is dead. Jesus Christ, I'm so blue all the time, and that's just how I feel. Always have, and I always will. I always have and always will. And it's 4 a.m. again, and I'm doing nothing again. You're growing tired of me. You love me so hard and I still can't sleep. You're growing tired of me and all the things I don't talk about. Sorry, I don't want your touch. It's not that I don't want you. Sorry, I can't take your touch. Black clouds are behind me. I now can see ahead. Often I wonder why I try, hoping for an end. Sorrow weighs my shoulders down, and trouble haunts my mind. But I know the present will not last, and tomorrow will be kinder. Tomorrow will be kinder. It's true, I've seen it before. A brighter day is coming my way. Yes, tomorrow will be kinder. Today I've cried a many tear, and pain is in my heart. Around me lies a somber scene. I don't know where to start, but I feel warmth on my skin. The stars have all aligned. The wind has blown, but now I know that tomorrow will be kinder. Tomorrow will be kinder. I know I've seen it before. A brighter day is coming my way. Yes, tomorrow will be kinder. A brighter day is coming my way. Yes, tomorrow will be kinder.
Murder lives forever, and so does war. It's survival of the fittest, rich against the poor. At the end of the day, it's a human trait, hidden deep down inside of our DNA. One man can build a bomb, another run a race to save somebody's life and have it blow up in his face. I'm not the only one who finds it hard to understand. I'm not afraid of God, I am afraid of man.
Is it running in our blood? Is it running in our veins? Is it running in our genes? Is it in our DNA?
Humans are gonna behave as we think we always should. Yeah, we can be
I'm feeling honest. I'm feeling very lightheaded right now. Right now. And I'm supersonic, but it doesn't seem you like that right now. Right now. Are you feeling me and my attention? Do you like the way I'm speaking? Do you hear me? Do you hear me? And that song is pretty tight up from the sequin like a bottom. Do you hear me? Like seriously, do you hear me? Dancing by myself, I'm taking pictures of your homeboys. Don't know which way I'm going, cause I lost my sense of knowing that my head is getting dizzy, dizzy, dizzy. Maybe it's cause I'm fucking tipsy, tipsy, tipsy. And I'm pretty tipsy, 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 tipsy. So fucking tipsy, 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 tipsy. And I'm pretty tipsy, 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 tipsy. So fucking tipsy, 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 tipsy. I don't wanna feel alone tonight. So stay, cause a bitch be falling down tonight. Cause I'm so fucking tipsy in the bathroom, throwing up a storm in your toilet. Oh fuck, damn it. And I had your sweatshirt on, and I don't think you want it back after I did this. I fucking did this tonight. And I'm dancing in circles, so shake your Uber's fucking hair. But I didn't get the chance to tell you I did all this shit because I'm tipsy, 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 so fucking tipsy, 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 tipsy. And I'm pretty tipsy, 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 so fucking tipsy, 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 tipsy. I don't wanna feel alone tonight. Cause a bitch be falling down tonight. Cause I'm so fucking tipsy. Baby, I just don't receive the liquor is in me. I just want you with me, only when I'm never tipsy. I'd be a party bitch, but I can make you want it. I just want you next to me, only when I'm never tipsy. Only when I'm never tipsy. No, you want to be next to me. And I'm pretty tipsy, 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 so fucking tipsy, 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 tipsy. And I'm pretty tipsy, 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 so fucking tipsy, 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 tipsy. I don't wanna feel alone tonight. Don't wanna feel alone. Cause a bitch be falling down tonight.